rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zimet.
Hello and welcome to the Beverly Zimet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Karen Perkins. She's calling in from Utah, where she just happened to be parked for the moment. And she is also part of the sequel to The Secret. So she's got some exciting stories to tell us. So Karen, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
And we're going to have a fun conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing but the best.
So how did it manage? I mean, how did you end up being in that sequel to The Secret? How did that all come about?
Well, it's called How Thoughts Become Things, and I am an NLP expert, and I've written multiple books on emotional intelligence. But what really happened is that I was on a stage in England, and the gentleman who produced the movie saw me speak, and he came up and said, I have got to have you as one of our experts in this movie. And it's interesting because a lot of the same folks from The Secret are in this movie, and he didn't produce The Secret or anything, but it's The Secret told the what and why, and how thoughts become things is the how. And how is the only action word of the who, what, why, when, where, how. And, we've got Bob Doyle and Bob Proctor and John Ashroff and John D. Martini and Joe Vitale and Marie Diamond, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So, we got a lot of the people that were in The Secret, and then we've got 2 or 3 of us that were not. So it's interesting because people now will say, oh, I loved you in The Secret. And it's like, I'm glad the show changed your life. And you never know if you should tell them, no, I wasn't, and embarrass them, or just smile and not be honest. So if you're one of those that remember me telling you something in The Secret, I am so sorry. I was not in it, but I am so glad you got something powerful out of it. So,
Sometimes,
just not that one.
right. Sometimes it's easier to just say, oh, thank you very much, because it's just easier. You don't have to explain yourself. They don't have to feel like they've got to stumble over. And
that's just it. If I tell somebody, oh, no, you're wrong, I've just embarrassed them. And last thing I want to do is embarrass somebody.
Right.
And, I never say, yes, I was in it. I just say, I'm glad that you got a lot out of the movie.
Right.
And kind of leave it at that. And now everybody watching your show will know if they've said that to me, I honor you and I don't embarrass you. Therefore, I didn't say it. You weren't. No, I didn't. Would never say that to anyone.
Right. Right. Well, they both have the word secret, so I guess that's okay, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that movie as well, and you really just mentioned something about the emotions, right? Because I call myself an identity revelation specialist, and I help people become their own self-discovery archaeologists, which is moving away the things that you're not to find the thing that you really are, right?
Right.
So that you can be you, find your purpose, and that's being that best you that you can be. And so I really work on the emotional aspects of everything, getting into the depth of where it come from. But I've developed over the years some different techniques, and I have a little technique I call the rah-rah system, which is 5 steps. So you first recognize, then you acknowledge, then you release, then you replace, and then you accept. And you can do this, and you can run through when you discover an issue that you want to change. You can do this in 30 to 60 seconds and have that gone, to where now you can move forward instead of have buyer's remorse, because you got yourself into something, and then now you're trying to figure out and justify how you're going to get out of it, right?
Oh yeah. One of my best sellers is Emotional Power. And it's kind of like what you're doing. It goes has the logic behind emotion and the emotion behind logic because they go hand in
Oh
hand. You
my
can't
gosh.
have one without the other. And I love your rah rah. What I've been using is we laugh about it. I've been using Rapu or Rafu, but it's same thing as yours. It's first you got to recognize, hey, I'm having an emotion,
Right.
and then you acknowledge this is the emotion I'm having,
Right.
and then you got to feel it fully. You're angry, be angry, just get it out of your system. If you're excited, be excited, keep that in your system. If you're hurt, whatever, but go through it quickly. Don't get stuck in that one. That's
Right.
one where people get stuck. But once you've recognized, acknowledged, and felt it fully, now you process it, and then finally you use it or you diffuse it. Because anger is actually a good thing if you use it as a tool and not a weapon. I
Exactly.
mean, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, they were angry. John Walsh, shoot, he gets angry every week, but look at the good he does with it, you know. And yeah, it's anger. If you use it as a weapon, is not good, and the weapon can be against yourself or someone else.
Right.
And it's like my sister used to always say, resentment and anger is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
I've heard that, and that is so true. And when you're angry with someone else, they're not feeling anything. You're internalizing all of that. And, when I started on my journey, and really started to break loose and out of it, because I didn't have an identity. I had lost my identity over like 4 years, and it's like that wasn't me. And so, getting that back, the anger that I had, oh my gosh, I just exploded. And I took my walk. I always grew up in the Midwest, so I'm walking down gravel roads, and I'm figuring, I'm out of this world because this isn't the way life is supposed to be. This is back in the 70s. There was nobody to talk to back then.
Yeah.
And that depression, I had bouts of depression off and on through childhood. I'm second oldest of 11, but I was always that rebel, but I had lost my identity in 4 years, through a marriage that was an endless, whatever. I ended up with 3 kids, bing, bing, bing. I didn't want to follow my mother's footsteps because there were 11 of us. I mean, so many things. This was not my dream. This is not where I was supposed to be. And I took off for a walk, and I tell you, I gave God a piece of my mind. Later did I find out, like in the 80s when things are different, I found out I wasn't really yelling at God, it was myself. But the anger that I had towards my father, I mean, I just released all of that. And when all that came out into the degree, and I never do anything little, I do it massive, I was totally exhausted. Totally exhausted, right? And that's when I started really paying attention again to my intuition, to that voice of my higher consciousness,
Yeah.
which I had lost in those 4 years, right? And
Right.
yeah, and so paying attention to that changed my life. That was a big aha moment because it was like, yeah, well, who's going to take care of your kids if you're not here? Oh, slap to reality, right? And so I have to say that my children were my biggest driving force because I had a list a mile long. I said, okay, fine, if I have to stay on this planet for a long time because my kids are all under the age of 5, then I want out of a dead end marriage. I want out of Iowa. I had a list. And the voice
Hey,
just
you
said,
know what? I think you and I lived the same life.
yeah,
Yeah, only my ex chose not to work. Um, and so I had to work just so my kids had things to do. And what he did is he fed my kids full of your mom works because she doesn't want to be your mom and deal with you. And he
oh
chose to stay
no.
home to be the one that loved them and took care of them. And it was funny because there was nothing I could say to do to convince him differently
Right.
until I finally left him after 27 years.
No, I
And
got out long before that.
uh, 27 years, and I stayed for the kids. And if I realized how much I was going to screw up the kids, I wouldn't have stayed. But I did.
Yeah. Well, you
They
know,
did not know what they didn't know what a marriage of love was. They grew up
right.
in a loveless marriage. But I finally left him. He's a great man, just was not a good husband for me, nor was I a good wife for him because I enabled him to be what he was.
Right.
And now that I'm remarried to the most wonderful man in the world. He's not perfect, but that's okay because neither am I. Therefore, he is perfect for me. Uh, but my kids now, 10 years later, are like, "Wow, Mom, I had no idea Dad was Dad," and we'll leave it at that.
There you
And
go.
you know, I, what could I say? I could have fought and argued and said, he's a horrible person, but he wasn't a horrible person. He just didn't want you to think I loved you.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting the things that we go through and why, but it makes us stronger, you know. And when I left, my kids were 8, 9, and 10, and so I told them, I said, this isn't a good thing because I knew I had to get my act together to be able to support them, right? And I was working towards that, and things were happening, and I was bringing in my own income, and supporting me and my kids at the same time, just living in like a roommate situation, so to speak. And then we left little farm country Iowa to go to big Denver, Colorado.
wow.
Yeah, huge difference. But they adjusted. And I told them, I said, this isn't the way a family is supposed to be.
Right.
And I never ever badmouthed their biological father, right? And I told him, I said, this is where we're
You
going.
try not to. You
No.
really try not to.
Well, and I didn't. It's like you have your communication, your connection with them, and nobody's here to take that away. It was open. He chose to leave their life,
Hmm.
and there's nothing you can do about that. They would come and they'd ask me questions about it, and I said, I don't know what's going through his head. I can maybe give you suggestions. Maybe this is why, because he's got another, woman in his life and he's starting another family. And, whatever the case is, I said, I don't know. Everyone has their own individual reasons why they do things. But we met a gentleman that actually became that father figure. And they really grew to love him because he was there because he chose them. And he actually
Right.
fell in love with my kids before he fell in love with me. So
Yeah.
what does that
Well,
tell you, right?
and I didn't leave until my kids were in their 20s, and a couple of them are very, very close to their dad now and have kids. And the kids go to Papa's house, and when Nana's in town, they see Nana, and when Nana's not in town, we talk on Zoom or Skype or whatever.
Right.
Um, but he remarried the most wonderful woman who is a good wife for him, and he's become a much better husband because she doesn't allow him to do the things I allowed. And so, I have to take responsibility for my part. I do not take responsibility for his part. But one of the things that I love that you said about getting rid of being not knowing who you are and being something else.
Right.
I'd like to share one thing that I learned a long time ago. And honestly, there are days I still struggle with it. My kids were in school. What did I say? I'm Joey's mom. I'm Spencer's mom. I'm Megan's mom. I'm
Exactly.
Ed's wife. Now I'm Darwin's wife. No, I am Karen Perkins. Darwin happens to be my husband.
Right.
I'm Karen Perkins. Spencer is my son.
Right.
I'm Karen Perkins. Joey is my son. I'm Karen Perkins. Here are my
Right.
grandchildren. And
Right.
that gives me the ability to have my identity and not just own these people I love, but a lot of us become the mother, the spouse,
Right.
the daughter, the son, the whatever,
Yeah.
instead of saying I am me. And these folks happen to be part of my circle.
Right. And when I did exactly what you did. I done it all seriously. It's like, no, I have a name. Okay, right? Because we do that. We do get known for association of who we are. That's not who we are. It's what we do. And I would say that, they say, oh yeah, you're so and so's mom, or you're married to so and so, or you belong. Oh, this one was a killer. You belong to so and so. It's like nobody owns this person, right? And I say, no, that's not exactly true. I'm Beverly, right? And yes, I happen to be married to that person. Yes, that's my son. I did that same thing. And they would look at you like, what? Why
Oh
would
yeah,
you
you're
say
like
that?
this weird creature with 42 heads, and it's like I am who I am, and I'm proud to be
Exactly.
their mother, but they happen to be my child. I
Right.
gave birth to them. They
Yes.
should give me birthday presents on their birthday.
That's a good idea. You know what? I might mention that to the kids.
Well, you know what? I try to send my mom birthday presents on my birthday because you know what? I didn't do any of the work. She did it all.
Yeah, and after you go through it, you know what that could be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I also love that you're telling people repel that which is not you.
Yes.
Repel the negative, repel the stigma, repel what people told you should do. I mean, this is all mindset.
Right.
And your neuropeptides, they control, they actually they go into your cells. And what happens is that your cells will divide. And if you're feeding it, I am, you know, Bob's kick around person, and you feed it that, when the cell divides, this has got some I'm Bob's kick around person,
Right.
and this one is fully I'm Bob's kick around person. And now all of a sudden you've got two cells and neither of them are healthy.
Right.
And then they divide, and it's all from what you feed yourself. But the good news, our cells regenerate about every 2 months or so.
Right.
And so you can change that programming and start feeding yourself. I'm Karen. I'm Dr. Karen Perkins, and I am not Bob's kick around person. And if Bob chooses to kick something around, he is welcome to leave and find another place to kick things. Uh, you know,
Yeah, and
and
again,
really love who you are. Love who
you
you
have
are
to.
with
Yeah.
all of your faults.
Right. And again, when you can recognize that, and that's why the little rah system works so good. When you recognize that, you know, that's not what I want to be anymore. It's running on autopilot, like you say, because it's in that cell memory, that subconscious, and the subconscious is going to win. It's like a child, right? You're not going to take anything from that subconscious. So when it does come up, to acknowledge it, and when you acknowledge, what those issues are, it's your truth. You have to acknowledge it as your truth, because if you don't, the conflict with the subconscious continues. But when you say, I acknowledge this as my truth, because it was when you created it, it was the database of information, like you said, all that stuff that's in that memory, right? That was your database when you created that. And the subconscious took that as, verbatim, that's the truth and that's the way we're going to live it. So if you make the subconscious right, you make the little 5-year-old correct, okay, then it says, oh, okay, and it puts down its guard. Now the conflict is ended. Now you can have a conversation with that subconscious to say, that old stuff back there wasn't so good anymore. You're right. This old candy bar is kind of stale and moldy and ew. So how about we get rid of it, and then we bring in this new shiny. Look at this. Isn't this nice? And the subconscious says, okay, I don't want this anymore. I want this. Right? And
oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is, and it's something that I say over and over and over again, and it's like, let me beat it into you.
yeah.
What you believe is true for you,
Right.
even if it's not based on reality.
Exactly.
And your subconscious mind is the most protective part of your system.
Yes.
And so if you say, I'm going to screw up, or I'm going to embarrass myself, or I'm going to fall down the stairs, or I'm going to whatever, your subconscious mind will find a way to make that true.
Happen. Oh my gosh.
It will find
yes.
a way, because it is out to protect you and to prove you right. That is its primary objective is to prove you right. And
Yeah.
so as soon as you can say, hey, you know what? I am not going to fall down the stairs. And I like what you say. You got to acknowledge it and say, you know what? That has been my truth. But my truth, my Angelo, I did what I knew. When I knew better, I did better.
Oh, I like
And
that.
that's what I tell myself. I have my truth. And I say, well, that was my truth. It no longer is. I did what I knew. Now I know better, so I'll do better.
So you let go of the old stuff, you put in the new. Hey, and again, it's really important. I think this is where a lot of modalities and stuff that people are using, they
Yeah.
forget to replace it because we talk about energy. Energy does not like a void. We live in a negative world, unfortunately. So what's going to pop in there? That first next thought, and a lot of times it's a negative thought, and then your subconscious builds on that. So you want to make sure that once you've got the subconscious, taking this new shiny object of your new belief, because
Hmm.
right, that changes all the time, like you had said. Now it's like, hey, I am powerful, I am loved, I am great, I can do whatever I want, I can,
Yeah.
you replace that, and then that subconscious starts building and starts connecting magnetically, because all thoughts magnetic, right? So that's going to come.
The law of the universe is energy.
Yeah.
And, doing NLP, being a certified hypnotherapist, you remove the negative energy. And I always tell people for the next several days, drink lots of water,
Yes.
listen to positive music, read positive books, whatever, but positive, 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 because as you said, negative energy doesn't like voids,
No.
and it will fill that spot with more negativity. And because that's the easiest thing for it to grab because it's used to it.
Exactly.
And one of my best bosses in the whole wide world, oh man, I could tell you quote after quote after quote he gave me. My first one, though, is my favorite. His daily affirmation, he said multiple times a day, not proper grammar, but it's okay, was, I repel all negativeness of my own and of others. You could not be in his presence for more than 3 seconds with negativity. You just couldn't. I watched angry people come into his office and within moments calm down. So that's a good daily affirmation for people to
Right.
do. But the other thing he said, stop watching the news.
Oh gosh, I see
You know,
that so much too
amen.
much.
It's sensationalized. They put the stuff that they know is going to sell, which is all the negative, 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 negative,
Yes.
because it's there to sell. And negativity sells better than all of these wonderful things around us. And if the world's going to come to an end, I promise you, somebody will stop and tell you. And quite frankly, I don't think I want to know.
Right.
Just let it come to an end and let me be blissfully happy right up to the last
That's
instead of
exactly right.
freaking out about it.
You can't change it, right? So change the things you can. The things that you can't, let them move away. And I
Yep.
think this is because thought is magnetic, and emotions, and feelings are magnetic. So when you have an issue and everybody sits around, and you're bashing this, that, and the other thing, what they don't realize is that 5% of that negative charge that you started building on is yours. The other 95% is what you've attached from others through conversation, watching a movie, playing a video game, all of these different things, because they trigger and they're familiar, and you attach to them because you sympathize, so to speak, versus empathize, right? And there's a huge difference with that. So when you can understand that the stuff that you're dealing with and the emotional traumas that are going on in your life, and these big, upsets and crazy events, 95% of it wasn't even yours. And that's becoming that self archaeologist, where you can start moving, that out of the way. Because a lot of times someone else will see in you something that you don't see in yourself, because it's like being too close to the forest to see the trees, right?
Well, and the truth is, at any given moment, there's a minimum of three, usually six people who are watching you and your behavior from afar, who are saying, I wish I was just like her, or I wish I was just like him. And we're going, why on earth would you? I, yeah, but there are. It's a fact. And we can't judge other people. I mean, I remember I had a gal in my church when my kids were little, and her kids would come to church and sat quietly with their arms folded. She was tall and slender and gorgeous and drove a Cadillac and had a wonderful job and made lots of money, and her life was perfect, or so I thought.
Right.
And I just kept getting this feeling I needed to call her and see if she was okay. And I didn't know why, but energy. And one
Right.
day I decided I'm going to call her. So I called and I said, Hey, Linda, I've had you on my mind. How are you doing? And she broke down and started to sob. And she says, You're the first person that has asked me that in 15 years. She says, Both of my kids had hepatitis, whichever one it is, where they'll die if they're too active. Both of my kids have got it, so they can't be active. My mother is living with us near in hospice. We have to roll her every so many hours to keep her from getting bed sores. I am a pharmaceutical rep, and I have a Cadillac because that's what my boss told me I had to have, a similar type of car. And it breaks down all the time. And I can't afford to get it fixed because we're paying my mother's medical bills, we're paying my kids' medical bills. My husband can only work part-time because he has to be here to help take care of my mom, and my job made more money. And I mean, she just broke down and started crying. All of a sudden I thought, man, sh her life sucks. And I don't mean
Right.
that I don't mean that disrespectfully, but here all this time I was kind of envious or jealous of her as a young mother, because we're at church and my kids are running up and down the pews and I'm ready to beat the trash out of them because they won't sit down and be quiet. And
Right.
hers are just sitting there folding their arms. Well, they knew if they were too active, they would die. And they didn't play a lot at home either. I mean, quiet little games, push the toys on the floor. And all of a sudden, I was so grateful for my life.
Yeah.
I was grateful that my kids were active and could be. I was grateful that, the job that I had, I was able to do without worry of, if my car breaks down, am I going to be able to go and make the pharmaceutical sales so that I meet my quota so I get paid? I didn't have anyone living with me who was near hospice that had to be turned over all the time. I wasn't paying a million people's medical bills. And I thought, how dare I judge her?
Right.
And it was a judgment. And we do the same thing on the negative with people. And I used to tell people, we would judge Miss America. We say, I want to look just like her. But you know what? Do you ever stop and ask yourself, you'll like this, does she ever pass gas? Guess what? She does. And it's stinky. You know, they're allowed one peanut M&M a month. Give me my chocolate. They put Vaseline on their teeth so that their lips don't stick to them, which I needed to do today.
Hmm.
They put
I didn't hear
hemorrhoid
that before.
cream. They put hemorrhoid cream under their eyes to keep from having bags. I mean, ooh, do you know where that's supposed to go? But we don't stop and consider that.
Right.
And so we need to stop judging ourselves off of other people. We need to love other people for who and what they are. And we need to judge us off of, what is the best me I can be? How close am I to being there? And if I'm miles away, you know what? It's all right because I'm on the journey and I will arrive.
Right.
And knowing that is the biggest change we can make for ourselves and for the world. Because now we can be an example to say it is okay to have flaws and faults and still love yourself and still hold your head high and still
Right.
know that you can be a leader in industry, a leader in whatever, and help other people improve their lives. You don't have to be perfect, because if you were, well,
You wouldn't be
you
on the
would be
planet.
exalted. You would be exalted and you wouldn't be of any good to anybody anyway. So
it's a journey down here. It really is, and it's a learning journey,
yeah,
right? I wrote a book called "Which Side of the Fence Are You On?" which is the world of duality. So when you look at that world of duality, you can't be on both sides of the fence at the same time. It has to be one or the other.
yep,
You choose. And I tell you, it's a whole lot harder and it takes a lot more energy to stay on the negative side of the fence than on the positive side of the fence because we talk about frequencies, right? When you're in that positive frequency, you're going high, right? But when you're on those low frequencies, it drags you down and you're going slow. Just by
it
doing a
it makes
thought.
you a prisoner.
Oh, it does. It really does. And I really love what you shared about that judgment because that's one thing too that one of the first things that I help people understand is remove judgment. Remove judgment on yourself, remove judgment from others because you're not walking in their shoes and they're not walking in yours.
Yep.
Right? And you don't know what someone's experiencing just because of the outside, signs. Just
Yep.
like the little story that you shared, and that is very impactful. So reach out. Reach out to anybody and everybody. It's kind of like when you're in high school, and the most beautiful girl there, she was the queen of the homecoming and everything, and she was just beautiful, whatever. And it's like she could get any guy out there she wanted, and she comes to the prom and doesn't have a date. And why is that? Because the guys were afraid to ask her because they didn't want to be turned down, so nobody asked her, right? So it's that same thing, right? Don't look at the cover. Look what's inside.
Well, and the
Right?
cover changes.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it or not, I was very, very thin for many years. And you know what? I'm not now. And for a while, that really bothered me. And finally, I said, you know what? It is the way my body is built. I have starved myself to obesity, as my doctor says. I I don't eat very much, and my body says, "Hey, this is the weight you're going to be." And I had to finally accept that and learn to love myself at this weight. And you know what? It's not that bad. I'm healthy. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares? There were times where I would say, I can't go out in public because I can't. You know what? Who cares? And it's it's not my body that has the heart and soul and the knowledge.
Right.
It is my heart that has the heart, is me that has the soul, and it's the knowledge from study that I have that I want to share and I can share and I do share. And it's the same with you. It's your knowledge in your heart, in your soul. And, we have a choice. We can choose to be happy or we can choose to be victims. And some people wear their victim stance as a badge.
Oh, gosh. And where do they put that badge? Right over the heart, right?
Yeah, they wear it as a badge. It's not, I have cancer, it's, I'm a cancer victim. I'm a cancer patient. But you know what? I'm Karen and I happen to have cancer. I don't. But,
Right.
I'm Karen and I happen to have a cold sore. Okay,
Right.
maybe. I'm Karen and I happen to, but no, I'm a cancer patient. I'm a cancer victim. I'm a rape victim. I'm a burn unit victim. And my heart goes out to these people. It truly does. So as I say these things, please don't hear me be disrespectful because it's hard and they've gone through a lot. But I know people who have gone through things that I tell you, I, I, I don't know how they've made it, but yet they are the sweetest, kindest, happiest, truly happy people because they said, yes, that happened to me and I can't change it.
Right.
So I'm going to rah rah and I'm going to move forward and I'm going to make the best of my life and help other people make the best of theirs.
Right. And it boils down to that ownership too. I am is the most two powerful words in the dictionary, right? So really be careful what you put behind that because that's ownership. And when you repeat that on numerous occasions, it starts to become a belief system. And we talked about that cell memory, right? it goes into every cell of your body, and your body says, "Oh, that's what you want. Well, already have at it," right?
And
So,
you know that your thoughts can do connect to your genetics and can genetically change your whole makeup.
oh yes,
You
yes.
know, your thoughts can literally change your genetic makeup. And you know, the same boss that I told you I love you. I've got 10,000 quotes he gave me. But the one thing he said is that when you're having a rough day and somebody says, "How are you?" you smile at them with the biggest smile ever and you say, "Unbelievable."
Right.
You're not lying, but you're not telling your mind, "I am horrible," is awful. And you're not being annoying to the other people who quite frankly don't really care how you are anyway.
Yeah,
And
that is so true. That is so true. We've been kind of programmed to say, "Oh, well, how are you?" Right? And people say
yeah,
fine. Well, we know the definition of fine, and you listen to the tone of the voice, right? But
well, and
people,
it's when they say, "How are you?" as they're walking past and they're 5 feet behind you before they even finish saying you, and you're like, "I'm great, thank you for asking."
right, right. A lot of times I'll say, if I was any better, I'd be twins or I'd be triplets or something, right? And it just kind of catches them off guard because they haven't heard that before, right?
Right.
And so it stops them to say, "Oh, what did I just ask?" Right? So
Hmm.
it just kind of I kind of like to do that.
I see. My fun one that catches them off guard is when they say, "Hi, glad to meet you," and I'll say, "Well, I know you. Don't you remember we went to different high schools together?"
I'm gonna use that. I love
We went
that.
to different high schools together, and they're like,
We did.
"We did?" Yeah.
Of course we did.
And then they stop and think about it, and it's like, it's memorable though.
It is. It is. Some of the things that you do and say, is what people remember you, by. And again, it's making light of things. This whole heavy, boring, sometimes all this politically correct stuff, sometimes you just throw that crap out the window and just be you, right? And and
Yep.
and again, moving back into that just being you, it's like, who is the real you? Because if you're someone over here different when you're at work, and then you're someone over here different with family and friends, you're someone completely different on vacation because you're at a place where you don't know anybody, so you can let it go, right?
Yep.
And all these different avenues of being somebody different. If you took people from all of those areas, put them in a room together, you got invited to that party and you walked in, and now you saw all these people from the different avenues, who are you going to be? You're going to be somebody who says, "I don't feel so good and I don't want to contaminate you guys. I'll see you later," right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know who to be, because there's so many different yous of in there, because everyone knows you something different. And that's why it's really important to really begin to understand who you are and find your true identity so that you can find your true purpose and really fulfill your life and everything you're going. And another quote, we're talking about quotes, we have a show of quotes here, is
Yeah.
is it doesn't matter what other people think of you, it matters what you think of you.
Yeah. It's none of your
Right?
business what somebody else thinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
That's right. I know me and I like me and I love me. There's times when I may not like me as much as I love me, but again, then I pull out the old rah rah, right? And
hmm.
again, and that's what this show is all about, being that best you that you can be. And that's why I chose that open-ended, little quote thing, theme, is because there's always room for improvement, because our database of information gets bigger and bigger. And when we can, what used to be a truth now may be a false today. What was once a false all of a sudden might turn into a truth, right? And so it's not about eating crow or anything like that. It's about changing your database of information, moving out of your comfort zone, and really having an open mind, and see what's there, because there's so much in the world. And I love my life, and I'm sure you can relate to this because you travel
Yeah.
like I do. You meet so many interesting people all over the world, wherever you go, and you learn so much than if you were stuck in one arena, right? And that is the expansion of the beauty of being on the planet. This show, oh my
Yep.
gosh, has really opened my eyes because I'm able to interview people like yourself, Karen, and sometimes I wonder, how did these people find me that are going to be on my show? Because everything's organic. I don't have
Yep.
conversations beforehand, right? And I didn't even know because I've got, we have a mutual friend who's booking all these speakers for me. So I have a surprise every morning. I get up and it's like, okay, I got a show. Who's going to
There's
be
a
on
new
here today,
surprise.
right? And
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I a lot of us don't do things because of fear, and I love fear because fear is, in some cases, there to help us. I'm afraid of
right,
walking down that dark alley. Probably better not. However, in reality, fear is false evidence appearing real.
yes,
FEAR, false evidence appearing real. If it's real, it's a fact. So take care of it.
right.
If it's not a fact, it is just your imagination making up the worst case scenario. So do some study, do some research, get the information. In the movie, I tell a quick story about spiders. I ran, you like this, I was the director of Utah State Parks and Recreation's Reservation Call Center. Yeah, no room for my name on that business card.
I
Um,
guess not.
but I
That was an
had to,
identity problem, right?
yeah, but I had the opportunity to go camping at all the state parks. And I love camping. However, I don't like spiders. I was scared to death of spiders. And guess what? There are a lot of spiders.
Yeah, there are
And
a
I
lot of
realized
spiders.
I needed a study about the spiders. And as I studied, I realized most of them are really quite beautiful, and the webs they weave are so intricate, and they're among the most intelligent creatures on the earth.
Yeah, they really
Now there
are.
are some that are dangerous. I know I don't want to be near a hobo spider. Okay, I know what one looks like. I know how to kill it. I know how to stay away from it. But a daddy long leg is not going to hurt me.
Right.
Where, back before, if you told me you had to throw me in a pit of either cobra snakes or daddy long legs, I'd rather be thrown in the cobra snakes because I'd rather die of venom than die of fear. And now I'm like, it's just daddy long leg. They can't hurt me. Literally cannot
Right.
hurt me. And there's only a handful of spiders that can hurt you. Find out what they are, what they look like, know how to take care of them.
Right.
Um, and now these spiders are a fact. Yep, they're dangerous, but it's also a fact that 98% of the spiders are not dangerous.
Right.
And they're beautiful, and they help us. They catch the flies that none of us like anyway. You know,
Well, it's part of
they're
that
not
whole
bad.
ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a spider story. I haven't thought in this in like buku years, right? Growing up on the farm, we'd have to walk beans and pull out the weeds and stuff, because we didn't spray poisons on the fields,
Yeah.
and we walked
Organic. Yes.
organic, yeah, and then we walked the cornfields as well. Well, there's corn spiders, and I'm not kidding you. They were like this big, black with this big yellow stripe down the middle, right? And inevitably they would weave across the corn, right? You'd be looking down because you're pulling weeds, and all of a sudden you just feel, like you had to stop, and you look up, and here's this big spider you're just about ready to walk into. Oh, God, and you just like, oh, it'd scare the ever loving daylights out of you, right? And so you just kind of like walk over here, down the other one, and come back, and you're hoping there wasn't a weed underneath that web, right? Oh my gosh, I tell you, I used to have nightmares with spiders. I did not like spiders.
Uh, my kids still don't, and my husband now laughs at me because my daughter and grandson had come and stayed and were sleeping in the basement, and the big old spiders showed up, and they're like, "Come help us!" And I was like, I grabbed a shoe and I smashed it, and they're like, "Now, all of you people who would catch the spider and take it outside, I apologize. If they're in nature, I will leave them alone. That's their home. My home is my home. They are not welcome and invited." I smashed it, killed it, took the tissue, picked it up, put it in the toilet, and flushed it. And I just looked at him and I said, really? My daughter's in her mid 30s. My grandson was, in his mid teens.
Right.
And it's like, but Darwin said, well, it's because you'll always kill them for them. They don't need to learn how to. And I went, well, you know what? You got a point there.
There you go. Right.
You got a point.
And that's kind of symbolical too of what do we do, with our emotions that are causing us problems that spiral us this way. It's kind of like that spiral, that spider, it takes you down this direction. So how do you, kill those negative emotions that are ruling your life? How do you eliminate them, right? So the things that we do and the things that we have fears against, when you really start to incorporate them into your daily life and what other things are impacting that you can associate it with, it helps you to grow even better and do greater things, and again, using fear as caution instead of something that you have to be petrified.
Use it as caution and study it and find out if it's a fact or if it's a fear.
Yeah.
If it's fact, it's a fact. Take care of it.
That's right. Then live with it and deal with it, or do whatever you have to do, right?
Yeah. You either remove yourself from the situation, you communicate, or
the situation
whatever is there, you just let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Karen, this has been a delight having you here. We're coming up on the hour, and I so appreciate you being here. We could take this conversation to eternity.
Oh, absolutely. You're an awesome doll. And I laugh it because, it's like you and I have lived the same path.
It's kind of amazing. We really have. There's so much similarity, and we didn't meet until an hour ago, right?
Right.
So it goes to show that, you're really not that different from someone else. And so
that is so
give it
true.
up, get to know people, and have a great time, because if you can't enjoy this life and laugh, then why are you on the planet?
Yep. Amen.
So if there's one thing you can leave the audience with, what would that be? And then also tell them how they can reach you if they want to make contact.
Well, there's two things I would like to leave them with and tell how to get in touch with me. One is meditate 5 times a day. And by meditate, I don't mean sit in a corner going, oh, like some people
Oh my God,
think.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, don't do that. What I want you to do is, if you go to an office, be it in your home or away from home, when you get there, before you go in or start working, close your eyes and think of something that makes you smile for 30 seconds. And, if you have a hard time with that, turn on children laughing on YouTube. Trust me, that'll make you smile.
Right.
And then at lunch, do the same thing, 30 seconds. And if you drive home, before you start to drive, 30 seconds. And when you get in the driveway, another 30 seconds, because you don't want to take the negativity into the home. And then do it again before you go to bed. If you will make yourself smile for 30 seconds, 5 times a day, so that's 2.5 minutes, you will have more positivity than you can even imagine. And the other thing I want to do is, I have a download, daily affirmations, positive daily affirmations. They can go to drkarenperkins.com/affirm, AFFIRM. So drkarenperkins.com/affirm. And that's how they get in touch with me as well, drkarenperkins.com. Easy way to remember me. So I want to make sure they all get this free gift. So tell them just to go there, and we'll send them a download of it, and they have some positive daily affirmations they can listen to.
Great. Karen, do you write your name with a K, Karen, or a C, Karen?
You know what? Thank you for asking. It's with a K, and it's DR, obviously, for doctor, and then KAREN, Perkins. It's like the restaurant, PERKINS.
Awesome. So nowadays you just don't know, right?
You don't. You don't. And there's like 4,000 ways to spell Karen. So thank you for catching that.
So
So,
No problem. So thank you so much again for being here. It's time to say go out there, be that best you that you can be, because Karen and I, Karen with a K, are going to be the best we that we can be. And we'll see you all in the
absolutely.
next show.
Bye, everyone.